Thank you for having me. Today I have my colleague here, Holly. She's with me in Cognify. And in Cognify, what we're trying to do is make this world a safer and a better place to be. We are in the business of helping mission-critical organizations to mitigate risk. John, we talked about risk in a moment ago, and maintain business continuity, and at the same time, while they are doing that, also to streamline business operations, how they can make their operations more efficient. And what I'll do today is share with you some of the experiences we have around these mission-critical environments. I've chosen cities, but I'll touch also on some other verticals in which we're operating. Mission-critical environments for us are those environments where the cost of business disruption is very, very high. A city is one of them, airport is another, mass transit organizations are also bank institutions. The Federal Reserve Bank of the United States is a mission-critical environment, as well as utilities that provide electricity services of that type. And when we looked at cities, when we were approaching cities, and we've done a number of cities around the world, from New Delhi to Tegucigalpa in Honduras, we've done many cities in Europe. Really, we have coverage of every possible continent. We've seen that they are really concerned with two areas of their daily operation. One is their operation as a city, from traffic, malfunction, city operations of water, sewer, sanitation, whatever the case may be that the city needs to manage. And it also sometimes spans beyond just what you would consider as the municipality. In many cities, we've seen the airport as part of the city. The education system is part also of the city responsibility. And the other area is about safety and security. And this is usually driven by the public opinion, when the mayor is concerned about what they think about him, and he's concerned about providing a sense of security and safety to the citizens. Tegucigalpa is a great example. It used to be the most dangerous city on the planet in terms of number of homicides per year, per day, and it is now not even in the top 10 list, because they have used technology, as I will share with you later, to reduce crime rate by 40% in the first 6 months of implementing technology. They are now moving to San Pedro Sula, which is the second most dangerous city on the planet after Caracas, to do the same exercise. So I'll share with you some of the experiences that we have had. But I'll start maybe with starting to map what is the spectrum of things that a city is dealing with. And we've taken the approach to look at the probability of a situation or an incident or an occurrence or an anomaly that may happen versus the impact of a single one of them. And it's important to mention that it's the impact of a single repair work, or a single traffic jam, or a single car accident. So they're happening more than usual. Their probability and their frequency is very high, versus large events like flooding, earthquake, hurricane, act of terror that are happening maybe once in a lifetime, but when they happen, their impact is so severe, so high, that the cost in whatever, it's not only money, is very significant. And what we have noticed over time is that, the aggregated impact of the small events is as big, if not sometimes bigger, than the single event that may or may not happen because it's so random and so unexpected, like an act of terror. A good example where we have done that is the state of Colorado. And here you can see the impact of what we call the long tail, the smaller events. So a road accident, the cost of a road accident in Colorado on the state-wide highway system is $100,000 per hour. If it's involving hazmat, this very quickly goes to $250,000 per hour. And their overall economic impact is between $800,000 to $1 million per hour, resulting in an overall economy impact in the state of Colorado of $47 million of direct damages or impact, and almost $250 million in the GDP of the state, with indirect damages to the businesses involved and everything that has to do with that. So how cities are trying to manage this complex situation, and what they've done over the years is that they've started to deploy sensors and systems that would give them information so they can take informed decisions. And they added to that, obviously, people that would handle those sensors and systems and try to understand what's going on those screens and the pieces of data that they have. And they added to that processes, standard operating procedures that are kind of the best practices of how to manage situations within a city. Now, if you look at the city, typically situations, whatever the case may be, and you see some examples here, are involving more than one stakeholder. It's not a single entity that has to do with the situation. And depending on the situation or the event or the incident, it may involve traffic control, law enforcement, maintenance, fire department, city emergency operations center, sanitation, whatever the case may be. So they ended up with a very complex environment, many stakeholders, many sensors, many systems, and they are kind of many of everything, which is kind of hard to manage. And when we met with them and we asked them, so what is on your mind? They were mentioning this gap. And the gap was that, yes, we need to mitigate risk. This is our job. We need to maintain business continuity. We need to streamline business operations. However, we are faced with an overload of information. We are bombarded. We have tons of data. We don't have a problem of data. We don't have an insight. What is within this data? What is the kind of understanding or an insight that I can act upon, that I can gather from all those sensors, systems, and whatever we've deployed over the years? Our environment is much more complex because the threats are uncertain sometimes. They are more complex in their impact and severity. And we need to do that with a continuous pressure on budget. Do more with less, always. So how do we do that? How we manage that situation? And that led us to the understanding that the only way that they can deal with those challenges is to bring technology into the situation. And I shared with you the case of Tegucigalpa. This is a safety and security incident, but or case. But other cases are such that when they started to use technology, they got an insight about what is happening. They got the understanding of really what's going on, so they could really take informed decisions. And we were focusing on two areas. One was to take data and video analytics, and I'm mentioning video. Data it goes without saying. I'm mentioning video because video is becoming the most important sensor when you're sitting in such a distributed environment like a city, where you have cameras which are the eyes of the people that are the stakeholders that need to manage things. And if you can get some insight through computer vision analytics from the video, you can give them much more insight than just data streams from the Weather Channel or the sensors that they have or whatever the case may be. So we took an effort of taking analytics into take those huge amounts of data and give them some kind of a glean into what is in there, and then a platform to manage situations. Take technology to help them in the surfacing about what's going on. So let's take it to a more practical level of what does it mean. And if you look at any city, the heart of where things are happening is the city control room. And in the city control room, what you have is a number of operators that are sitting in front of big screens. I'll share with you a video later of the city of Glasgow to show you what does it look like. But they have all those systems and sensors that are sending them continuous information. And guess what? When something happens, all those systems and sensors, some of them are alert-driven, are starting to bombard them with information at the heat of the moment when they need to take a decision, an informed decision. So they are ending up with an overload of information, specifically in those times when something happens, and typically it's unpredictable. And then they need to, at that moment in time, to take a decision and to disseminate the information or to activate some sensors or some systems in order to contain the situation and to go back to normal operation. Their really number one mission is how quick they can go back to normal operation. How can they minimize the impact of the disruption? And so when we take technology and take those sources of information and put them into a correlation engine, and these are examples of some of the plethora of systems that could provide those type of information, and you put that into a correlation engine, we can create what we call the common operating picture. It's the common understanding in a typical control room in the city of what is going on. So people inside the control room and outside the control room, the different stakeholders that I was mentioning before, are all on the same page about what's going on. And I remember Superstorm Sandy and other incidents that we were managing, the visit of the Pope here in New Jersey, where the coordination, the same understanding is the very first step to an efficient containment of any type of an incident. So that is the first level of understanding, and the correlation is done over time, over location, sensor stability, and we are combining data, structured data, whatever the case may be, and unstructured data, like the form of video, even audio understanding and extraction of words from conversations over radio, over the telephone line, and so on. Then it is about presenting what is happening and where it is happening. That's the situation and awareness picture, followed by what do you need to do best. And this is really translating the philosophy of, or the concept of operations, to put it in the jargon of the industry, of what the managers or the stakeholders are thinking when they are dealing with each and every type of those incidents that I was showing you in the original slide. It's their kind of way of managing the response plans, the workflows that would contain that incident. And the technology here, what the technology is doing is taking all those procedures in the form of visual workflows and translating them into actionable, automated set of procedures, workflows, response plans that the different stakeholders, the responders, can take in order to have, for one, a very consistent way of managing incidents again and again, and a very efficient one. Then comes, after the fact, the understanding or the learning or the reconstruction of the scenario in order to improve for the next time an incident may happen. So when we look at that from how a city or any mission critical environment is managing that, we're looking at a complete life cycle of how an incident may be handled. And we've taken the 3 steps or 4 steps actually, of predicting, using predictive analytics. I'll give you an example in a second of how you can anticipate something that may happen. The situational awareness, the understanding of what's going on. The containment of the situation through automation of the concept of operation, and then the investigation and the learning with technology to simulate events, to prepare the team for the next time a hurricane or something even more simple than a hurricane may happen. So with the aid of technology, what we have found out is that by implementing that, we can reduce the impact of the incident by implementing technology. We can give them, in many cases, an advance notice that it may happen, anticipate a risk, mitigate a risk, or minimize the impact if the risk is materializing into a true incident. To give you an example, statewide of the state of Colorado had on February 25th of 2015, 33 hours of traffic jam.
Whoa.
You can do the math from the previous slide, how much was that in economical impact. And the reason was, they weren't missing any data. The data was there, but they hadn't had the insight. And when we were sitting with them, they were telling us that on one of the, on the spots of the highway, on a hilly part of the I-70, which is the highway that crosses Colorado, they had a snowy situation, which was February, which was winter. And they had 4 inches of snow. 4 inches of snow as part of the standard operating procedure. You don't send the snow plowers. You send them when there are 6 inches of snow. Okay, but something else happened. It became, the road became very slippery, and they had an accident. And then they had the weather forecast that is saying that the snow will continue for the next 12 hours. They had all that information and they did nothing. Why? Because there was nothing to correlate between the leading indicators to tell them, hey guys, look at this. This is maybe yellow because it's only 4 inches of snow. By the way, 2 inches is green, 4 inches is yellow, 6 inches is red, send the snow flowers. They had, this was yellow. There was kind of the sensor, they have sensors, I think thousands of them, that are measuring the friction of the road to anticipate slippery roads. And they had the weather forecast, but there was nothing that would correlate them together. And if they had that correlation, they would probably send the snow plowers and prevent the whole 33 hours, minimizing it maybe to 1 or 2 hours. So that gave them the idea of taking technology and deploy a statewide system that would do that kind of predictive analytics, would take historical data, would take the leading indicators, put them into an engine and give them a better situational awareness that this is actually a red situation. You should send the snow plowers now. You should prepare the responders for a terrible situation that may happen. Be prepared for that situation. The second example is Tegucigalpa that I mentioned. In this case, the benefit came not at the preparedness. There was nothing that could anticipate the 10 homicides per day that they had, because it was kind of the usual thing. But there was a way to contain them in a much better way and create some kind of deterrence. And that's how we manage, by efficiently managing the situation and kind of creating presence in the city very quickly after something was happening, to reduce the crime rate by 40% in 6 months. So one thing that we've noticed, as I mentioned before, is that the aggregated impact of the small long tail incidents could be as big as the X event. But another thing that we've noticed is that if you manage well the small events, you can very well, I don't know if very well, be more prepared for the X event. And the example I'm using here is the oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico, where it started with an abnormal pump temperature. Okay, it happens like many times, and you take a look at that, and then it developed to an undetected pump failure, and then it developed into pipe pressure rising, and then it ended up with pipe failure and oil flood. And with so many different examples that we have, not only in cities, but in every mission critical, if you are taking good care of the anomalies that may develop into a failure, that may lead to an incident, that may lead to a crisis, you have a better chance to manage crises whenever they happen. This is what we call for organization the operational intelligence, the ability, and this is the difference between good organizations and great organizations, well-managed cities, well-managed utilities, very well-managed utilities, is that operational intelligence, the ability to be effective in managing all types of incidents, not only the X events. Some of the organizations that have taken that technology and implemented that, you can see here a few examples. New Jersey Transit is actually deploying all those technologies here in the city of Hoboken, and it's actually all of New Jersey Transit, but specifically in Hoboken, this is the center of it. And when the Pope was visiting this place, they were using a slew of technologies to make sure that no incident happened, and were very well prepared for that. But it's not only on a daily basis. Also, cities are taking that whenever they have large events, and these are some of the large events that were managed using this technology to provide a better insight, better decision making through big data crunching. The next example I want to share with you is the city of Glasgow that was using the technology for the Commonwealth Games of 2014. Can you? Yes.
The new centre, which has been built in the shadow of the Games Village in Glasgow's East End, houses more than 1,000 screens monitored round the clock by specially trained police and civilian staff. The screens are linked to 500 plus cameras across the city, which monitor road traffic as well as pedestrian areas.
All of our facilities for the Commonwealth Games are operational now, are currently being used by the people of Glasgow. We will lend it for the use of the graphics during the Games. Similarly, this operations centre is about keeping Glasgow safe and keeping it moving.
The multi-million-pound centre is already online. It brings together previously separate security and traffic CCTV systems. It'll also oversee new specially programmed digital cameras, which are sensitive to movement in areas where movement is not usual.
Our sole purpose is about keeping people safe. We obviously want to stop it happening in the first place. We want to stop the antisocial behaviour happening. We want to stop the violence. And that's exactly what we'll be doing, and we'll be deploying officers to deal with that. This facility comes into its own in terms of allowing us to deploy officers at the right people in the right place at the right time. But also, when something does happen, we can react quickly.
We've been Glasgow. The new centre is expected to boost the city's capability before and during this summer's big event. Around 1 million tickets will be sold for the Commonwealth Games, and tens of thousands of visitors will come into the city every day just to be part of the Games experience. It's thought it'll be like the city hosting several cup finals across several venues on every day of the Games. Mike Edwards, STV News, Glasgow.
So they've taken the approach of making the video the most important sensor, and they put a lot of analytics on the video. One of them is motion. Now they've taken another technology called suspect search, where there is a suspect sometime. They would like to find him very fast. So maybe they have a description of him. Maybe they have a picture of him that was taken with an iPhone or whatever. Maybe they have a video clip. What they do is that they take that description, they put it into technology, and it will show them where is this person was going, what is the trait, where is he now. So they are trying to apply the philosophy that in order to have a better kind of risk mitigation and business continuity, the approach is to cover the complete life cycle of a risk. Predictive analytics, how do you contain the incident in the most effective way once it's happened, and then the after the fact investigation, the learning, the simulation, and yeah, they're a very successful example of that philosophy, of that approach, of that paradigm shift. The good news is that it's not only within cities. Oh, I skipped the slide. So just to summarize on this one, really where technology is coming into place in a 30,000 feet look is that our technology is taking big data and then turns it into situational awareness through correlation of those pieces of information. Then providing automation, because what happens with human beings is that we are very good in taking decisions. We're not good in detecting things, and we're not good in processing huge amounts of data. That is not something that we're very good at. So this is where technology is helping us to surface to us what is happening and what is the best course of action, and then the human being is taking the actual decision, the actual action. It's never left for technology. This is not where technology is good at. But the ultimate value that we are providing to those people is really the intelligence, the bird's eye view of how their business, whether it's a city, an airport, a mass transit, New Jersey Transit, is operating by providing insight from this data. This is the good news of not only cities adopting this concept. We've really seen it with all these are the first pioneers that have taken technology and really implemented that into situation management solution. Thank you very much. Any questions? I'll be happy to.
Have you found a
Yes. Sorry. You go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you. You gave an interesting example. Predictive.
Yeah.
And just a range, not necessarily precise value. How much does this installation of this system cost?
Okay.
A city the size of this.
Yes. So they've taken not only that system, it was also some kind of an infrastructure that they want to put. So they started really, so it was pretty expensive. It was starting at 25 million and go all the way to 40 million. But if you look at this, at just the technology itself without the infrastructure that they had to put, then it's a few millions. It's not more than that. The rest was put into, they had to put a network, they had to put, things that you would expect a city
Training,
to have.
I imagine. Training.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
sure.
Very good.
Your target audience is really airports, cities.
Yes, it's the stakeholders of mission critical environments. So it's airports. You can see a few examples here, just a few. These are mass transit organizations. These are banks, financial institutions in general. These are utilities and critical infrastructure like cities, like people are responsible for public safety. Whenever the cost of not managing the risk is very high, this is where.
Well, in the case of the Belgium recent attack
Right.
by the terrorists,
Yes.
what actions would your system send to the authorities?
Yes. So it goes back to the and now they are buying, and we just got an order. So yeah, they woke up a little bit late in my mind, but whatever. Yeah, they are again approaching now it from a complete life cycle. So they are taking the predictive part and they are trying to connect to social networks and to get advanced information about what guys like those guys may be planning, because they are using social networking extensively. I gave you the example yesterday of the World Cup. That was for fans, but this is also for terrorists. So this is one. The second one is how can they contain the incident very, very quickly? How can they find, because the airport was shut down for a few days because before they realized what was going on and how they can find these people. So technologies like suspect search can help them find these guys in a matter of seconds, maybe when they are in the airport. Or even if they have advanced information, to find them if they've seen, last time going into the airport because somebody said, wow, I've seen this guy. Where is he now? Try to, if he's a suspect, really. And then after the fact, it's how do we prepare for the next time? How do we do our lessons learned, and how do we simulate incidents to train the people to be very effective Because some of these incidents may have a lower impact if the response plan was much more efficient. And the impact may be financial or, or lives of people.
The sensor systems that you're using are fairly traditional.
Yeah.
You would not have something like DARPA's new landmine sensor. It can be 2 or 3 feet above ground and still detect a landmine, but you don't use those kind of things.
We connect to every possible source of data that you may have. We are not the source of data. We are crunching the data.
Got it.
So we have implementations with radar systems, seismic systems, you name it, depending on the different environments that we have here. Social networks, weather channels. So it's really a combination of sensors, legacy data that they have in the organization for historical analysis, external sources, like NC4, which is National Alert Center here in the US, and many different systems. Yes?
Small question, sorry, Moti. Very, very interesting, I found. Thank you very much for having given us that. You demonstrated, for instance, the impact of multiple small events can indeed be much greater.
Right.
The problem in all these things usually is that the distribution of the costs are not equal. So
Yes.
maybe the city only gets 1/20th of that cost. A lot of it might fall on the individual in the car, it might fall on the people living around the area.
Yes.
The costs are not evenly distributed.
Yes.
Which leads me to a strange thing, because obviously your focus is going to be more the security and the keeping traffic going and all the stuff.
Right.
But the problem for green growth and trying to put green growth on the agenda, exactly that one.
Yeah.
But they don't have the data to say this is how much it's costing you to be doing this.
Yes.
Now your system as a byproduct is generating precisely that data.
Yes.
So how do you actually try to work with this green growth movement? Because your stuff is exactly what they need to put on the table of the city planners. They
Yes.
realise your decision to do this has
Yes.
cost the city that much.
It's a great point that you're raising. And what we are experiencing is that we have usually 2 big phases. One is to convince them on the very tangible, direct impact. The second one is even more interesting, and we take them to other customers, because what happens when you get this system and when you get that operational intelligence is that this system is your ROI meter, it's your return on investment meter. It gives you all the benefits, it quantifies all the benefits for you once you have the system in place and once you start to collect the data and once you start to analyze it. So it's a kind of a 2-phase approach. We first have to convince them to, and we take a very small, the most important issue that they have on their mind. It keeps them awake at night. We start with this, and then they explore what they can do in order to really understand the total. And then they take it to their management and say, okay, we need to increase the investment here because look, we already covered this one. This is what we could get if, and you're showing them based on data, real data. Yeah. Yes.
Go ahead.
Surely.
Yesterday we discussed about citizens, and especially in Europe we have plenty of I presume here in America even more. We have had plenty of debate about that, how much data government or city or whosoever is able to collect about us and how it is processed. But now when I'm listening to you, what you are presenting, I think that each individual would benefit hugely if they could use the same data in order to improve their life. But then, of course, they need a user interface.
Yes.
And not an opportunity to follow up the husband when he's having long meetings. But that may be the way how you are able to gain both acceptance of the audience, and also you are maybe people are able to save a lot of money, for instance.
Yes.
So this would be a much more appreciated.
Yes. And you're touching also a very good point. Some cities are sharing pieces of this data that the public can use. So in the state of Colorado, they're taking the output of the system and they give this to people the predicted traffic load in the highway system, so they can pick different routes to get to work, for example. It's not going to the extent I think that you are aiming to, but this is a start that we've seen with many cities sharing the information with the public. In Tegucigalpa, they were sharing the information of the crime rate on a weekly basis, and then the president, this was a project that was sponsored by the president himself, raised the security tax, and nobody was complaining because he was sharing on a daily basis how their life is improving by using what he's doing for them.
So instead of top-down surveillance, this is also a sense-making kind of machinery how individuals can decide better what
Yes.
to do and what not to do,
Yes.
and also understanding why city government is doing this or that or that.
Yes, another thing, they can be part of the information coming in, because you, with this iPhone, is a very good source of information. If you see something going on, you can just take a picture now, a video, and send it to the city center with a small link or application, or put it on the social media.
Yeah.
And then it's there, and it's sometimes coming sooner than the 911 call. You know?
Yeah.
There
And
was,
with
we
the
were
better
managing in San
information.
Francisco a crash of, not a crash, but an emergency landing of an aircraft. The first piece of information was a picture that a Google employee took from another airplane and put it on the for everybody to know. That is before there was any announcement on anything. Just to give you an example of how fast things are moving now with this kind. So people can be notified about things, but they can be part of an incident management or risk mitigation as individuals.
One question, Marie. So obviously that your R&D teams must be working on similar theories as a number of the people in our group are looking at X events and analysis of data.
Yeah.
So what advice might you have for us, or do you work with universities at all?
Absolutely.
Or,
yes.
and maybe a little bit about how that best works for you. Like,
Sure.
And how what we might, not necessarily,
Yeah.
go forward with our work.
It's a very good question, and we work extensively with academic institutions to complement our technology. We don't pretend to be the masters of everything, and we want to leverage what mankind has achieved in general and bring solutions to make this world safer and better to live. So we partner with people that have complementary technologies and researches, and we took many of them in what is shown here. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we do it globally, in Europe and wherever we find good technology that can help us. Absolutely. Yes.
Have you been involved in providing insights in the planning phase of
If you're providing what?
Insights.
Insights.
From the planning phase of city planning, district redevelopment whatsoever, so that you could advise the city in terms of infrastructure or whatever operational system to have involved in such activities. So
Yes. This goes back to what Adrian mentioned. This is the next phase. Right now, they are doing the very basic physical need of either running the city operations better or provide better security and safety. But with the data, the huge amount of data that they are gathering now with the system, they can do exactly what you were saying by getting an insight into that. But this is kind of evolving now. It's not yet. I don't know of any city that we've done that is doing whatever is.
are you ready to do it now?
If they are ready to do it now, I think they have to go through the second phase of changing the mindset and say, oh wow, we can get even more insight from this. New Delhi is a good example.
So how much budget that would be?
How what?
What's the budget?
Oh, budget. It's how deep they want to go into this and what kind of insight they want to get, because that impacts the magnitude and the breadth of the solution. So.
If I talk to a city district meeting, so I want to involve such activities in the projects, how would I convince them? How would I start? What kind of figures or impacts and how should I?
The best way is to show them what someone else has done. And it depending, so what we do is that basically we go and first of all we listen. Before we open our mouth, we listen. What is on their mind? And we're trying to bring, whether it's security and safety, like the Shabtai, is it something on the operational side, like state of Colorado? Is it New Delhi that is trying to do both? And then we come up with example of use cases of what someone else has done, what was his set of issues, what was the solution, and what was the ROI, many times quantified into like what I've shown you in Colorado, the numbers. So that's the best approach, because once they say, oh wow, many times they go and visit and see it in their own eyes before they do the actual investment. But the best thing is to give them an example.
Testimonials.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a word of mouth thing, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
I got such impression that very extremely efficient, but the choking city. You should pay such attention of the redundancy and inefficiency and comfortability.
Yes.
I'm living in urban city of Singapore.
Yes.
That's the extremely efficient.
Yes.
And very convenient.
Yes.
But at the same time, there is a choking the society. But what the citizens prefer is not such the efficiency, but the inefficiency and amenity and redundancy.
Yes.
How could you take such the negative aspect into account?
Yeah, so it's always the trade-off between efficiency and redundancy, and it's really depend on the philosophy of the cities we're dealing with and what is more important to them. It's really up to them to decide whether they would put more resources just to make sure that everything is going well. What we bring to the table is a way for them to better manage that trade-off between the two. So we're trying to reduce the cost by having a more efficient operation that obviously reduces redundancy in whatever they do. But again, it's up to the top stakeholders to decide.
Not top stakeholder, but the citizen should decide.
Yeah?
The citizen, the user, customer should decide. In that context, you should take those stakeholders, particularly from the customer side, should take to the EUT.
Now when Chihiro is referring to the same issue that I spoke about earlier, that in order to create a problem solution system, all of these opportunity provides a huge beneficial layout also for citizens themselves to provide their impact, not only on security but local problem solving. So if I'm sure you have been in Singapore.
Yes.
Yeah, me as well. It's not my favorite city exactly because of the feature that Chihiro was mentioning. It is kind of choking. It is too efficient, it's too compressed, it's not very comfortable place to be. Very safe, but not very comfortable. So all of this data could be used also for citizens, provide them an opportunity to interact
with the city.
And solve some problems. So, did I get you right?
I can see the early signs of it, as I mentioned before, with cities sharing information, and in some cases asking the citizens to be part of it. But to give them the decision, I haven't seen that yet, to be honest.
And of course, your starting point is security, and you cannot allow people to tamper with the security system. That does not work. But this is interesting.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, one more question, I'm sorry.
If you will. So
Sure.
when you deploy one of these platforms, what you really need to do up front, regularly, you really need to bring together a multidisciplinary team, right? To define what these workflows are going to be, what all these alerts are going to mean, and what sensors to bring into that.
Yes.
Because what you have is a very open, extensive platform.
That is true.
Really great, but you have to define what what it is that this data is going to mean, right? And then you can do that through your private use cases as well.
Yes.
But every situation is going to be unique.
Yes, absolutely. And we are not in the business of making those concept of operations. We do not. And neither the standard operating procedures. What we do is that we bring technology to connect between people and processes. But the processes has to be done by an expert in that area, usually a strategic or an A&E consultant. The people are people that has to be trained. We just bring the platform that ties everything together to make it more efficient, more effective.
And one more point.
Sure.
Have you taken multiple platforms, regionalized them, and then had kind of a centralized platform that analyzes all this regional data, and you set it up kind of a tiered or layered?
Yes, absolutely. In many situations, there is, take city for example, or a metropolitan. It is, there is a central headquarter, and there are regional areas, and there are local areas, and it's a multi-hierarchy kind of structure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Very good.
Again, thank you for
Great,
listening.
thank you.